Welcome back to Washington Journal. On our program this morning, 4 new members of Congress. Up next is Paul Ryan, representative-elect from the 1st District of Wisconsin. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Lou. Good to be here.
There's a chart in Washington Times today about the House leadership races for the Republican Party, and it shows there are 5 races, 2 uncontested for House Speaker and Majority Whip, but the other positions, Majority Leader, Conference Chair, and Conference Vice Chair, all contested. 2 candidates, 3 and 4 for Conference Vice Chair. With contested races, what's it been like for you as a new member?
The phone's been busy, but this is a healthy process, I do believe, for our conference, for Congress as well. This is a good idea. We have new blood, fresh faces, new ideas. What I'm doing as a new member of Congress is assessing each of these individuals to see what their principles are, what their priorities are for the next Congress, and whether or not they're going to be good for Wisconsinites. Those are my litmus tests as I'm looking at these candidates. I mean, 2 of them are uncontested, so we have a new speaker, we have the same whip. But it is a good process. Tomorrow we're going to select these new members, we're going to hear their speeches, we're going to hear their cases, and that's what I'm waiting to hear, and I'm looking forward to voting for it, because whatever candidate we end up with, I think each of these are very, very good candidates. They offer very many different visions, different principles, different styles of leadership. We're going to be better off at the end of the day with this, though.
Article we saw earlier in the Wall Street Journal had a small line that said Mr. Armey had met individually with all of the freshman members. What was your meeting with him like?
Well, I had a few of them. We talked about issues. I actually talked to him more about Social Security and committees than leadership races. I've known him before. I used to work on the Hill. So I'm familiar with his style of leadership. I think he's a capable leader. He does share many of the same principles and values that I do. We're similar from the same cut of the cloth of the party. But he talked about getting support for his spot. I'm holding out myself. I want to see what the other candidates had to offer. And until a few days ago, we didn't know who was going to be in what race. You had late entrants in these things, so that's why I wanted to see, who was going to ultimately end up running for what position.
The new representative from Wisconsin's 1st District is Paul Ryan, with us for about another 40 minutes, and our first call for him is on our moderate line from Houma, Louisiana. Good morning.
Yes, sir. I just want to find out about his stand on gun control and stuff. In our state, in our area around here, we do a lot of hunting and everything else, and it seems like they want to continue making laws that we already have laws on the book to handle, supposedly what the newfound weapons of choice for criminals now. I'm just wondering if there's any FBI data or anything that these gun control advocates are, going by, or is it just a whim of certain individuals in the gun control lobby?
It's a good point. I, like you, I'm an avid hunter. I come from Wisconsin. I'm actually, opening day of deer season is Saturday, so I'm flying back Friday so I can join my family hunting for deer. I do believe that the 2nd Amendment to the Constitution is a fundamental individual right that must be protected. I see the right to own a firearm as a very important right that must be protected in our Constitution. Gun control is not crime control. Adding new gun control laws onto the books on top of law-abiding citizens, in my opinion, is not the best way to fight crime. The best way to fight crime are strong deterrents against criminals who use a gun. Go against the people who actually commit felonies, who get guns in the black market. I do not believe that more gun control laws are going to solve problems in crime. Right here, Washington, D.C., just a few blocks down this window here, you have crime problems. I used to live down here. I've been mugged before. I've heard the gunshots. This city has perhaps the most stringent gun control laws in any city in the country, yet it has perhaps the greatest crime problems with firearms. I do not think that more gun control laws are going to solve our crime problems. And in many cases, as you just mentioned, a lot of people in Congress propose new gun control laws, which may look good and tough at press conferences, but don't get results. I'm concerned that new gun control laws are going to build up a false sense of security among the people in our country, and we're going to lose precious time where we could better spend that time passing very important laws that will actually reduce crime. There are things that can help us, like an instant check system that do help prevent criminals from getting guns, but more laws on law-abiding citizens are not the answer to crime control.
This is a map of the congressional districts of Wisconsin, and in the southeast corner is the 1st District, portions of about 7 or 8 counties. Tell us about the 1st District.
Well, if you take a look at the 1st District, and as you mentioned, from this thing. This is Madison right over here. This is Milwaukee right over here. So these are the counties below Madison and Milwaukee. My hometown is over here, which is Janesville, right there. Underneath it is Beloit. Over here is Racine and Kenosha. In between, it's corn, soybean, dairy farms. Right in the middle, by probably the number one, is Lake Geneva. There's a few lakes, resort areas. On the sides are the four major cities, which I just mentioned. Industry, we have Chrysler, we have General Motors, Case Tractors. We have a lot of medium-sized businesses, small businesses, sprinkled with dairy farms, corn and soybean farms.
Next call is on the Liberal line. It's from Fort Lauderdale. Good morning.
Good morning. I have two questions. One about things you ran on, not you particularly, but Republicans ran on in the campaign. One, this idea of scrapping the income tax, taking sales tax. Now, there are millions of us out here who don't pay tax because we have such small incomes, like Social Security recipients, families with a lot of children. A sales tax would devastate us. Particularly people that have small children, they have to buy new clothes every 6 months. And the other question is about this flag burning amendment. Now, I learned years ago in school, and it's still in the almanac today, that the best way, the most honorable way to dispose of a flag is to burn it. Now, if I burn my old flag, which was on my husband's coffin at Arlington Cemetery, in my backyard, will you Republicans leap the fence and clap me in arms?
I'm not going to leap the fence and go catch you for bearing your flag. But to go to your first question on scrap the code, I ran on talking about scrapping the code, but not on the sales tax. And I don't think nationally they were talking about replacing it with a sales tax. Some people do. I agree with you. I think the first principle of tax reform ought to be that those who are on the bottom rung of the economic ladder should be held harmless. Give them a chance to get up on their feet to a road of self-sufficiency before they get whacked with taxes. What I think is important is take a look at our current tax system. We're working till May the 17th in Wisconsin just to pay our taxes to the government. Our tax system is punishing all those qualities that make America great. So we can have a better tax system. I share your concerns with the sales tax. It's regressive. People who have the least ability to pay taxes pay more of their disposable income on sales taxes. I think that is a problem with the sales tax, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't take a look at getting a new type of tax system. That may not be the sales tax. I share your concerns with the sales tax, but I do think we should not walk away from the chance to reform our tax system so we have one that gives people a better chance of producing in their lives, keeping more money for their family in their paychecks. Those are issues that are very important as we go into the next century.
On our conservative line, Minneapolis. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. The home of Jesse the Mind Ventura. Paul, congratulations very much for your election, and we look forward to your service in the Congress. I just wanted to call and just say a couple of things. One, earlier with Mr. Larson from Connecticut, who seems to be a very nice man, but has obviously been coached about the idea that his particular party believes that they should be at the kitchen table and making all the decisions for people in their homes about daycare, care, and all that sort of thing, and income. And I would just like to say that we need to have a lot more debate, and I think that Mr. Larson looks like he'd like to debate you on that, openly, without hatred, but on the issues, about the fact that the minimum wage example, you're going to be hit with that when you get to Congress. That's nothing more than a tax increase on the working poor and an automatic pay increase for the unions.
Thanks for your points. Minimum wage?
Well, I'd like to go back to some of his earlier things, and I agree with some of what you said with the minimum wage. It hurts the working poor. It takes jobs away from the very people we're trying to get into the labor force. But with what John Larson, I didn't hear what he said earlier, but we're here with good intentions. We are here to try and move things in the country. I ran my campaign based on two core principles that were contained in the Constitution. One is that the individual is the nucleus of our society and of our economy. And two, that government which governs closest to the people governs best. I think those two core driving founding principles are what ought to guide us as we replace the welfare state. I do believe that over the last 50 years, men and women have been coming to this town with this notion, with this belief, that they just need a little bit more money out of your paycheck so they can take it over here to the Capitol and spend it for you to try and solve your problems. I don't think that system works. That system of collective government, centralized government, failed in Eastern Europe, it failed in the Soviet Union, it's not working in China or North Korea, it doesn't work here. So my question is not whether the welfare state's going to fail, because ideologically and morally it will. What are we going to replace it with? That's what I'm concerned about. And that's why you have to have a set of core principles that guide you as you replace these things. And to me, it's the individual. The individual should make the decisions. We ought to ultimately devolve power and money and control, not only back to the states and the municipalities, but to the individual families in our society.
You mentioned earlier when you talked with Mr. Army, you knew him from your previous Hill experience, which was what? Who did you work for?
Well, I originally worked for a senator from Wisconsin named Bob Kasten. Then I went to work as a speechwriter and economic analyst for Jack Kemp for a number of years, before returning back to the Hill for a Kansas legislator named Sam Brownback.
And you also mentioned talking with Mr. Army about committee assignments. What are your hopes there?
Well, I'd like to work on a committee that's going to allow me to work on the economic type of issues I campaigned on, specifically Social Security reform, stopping the government from raiding the trust fund, and taxes. There are a few committees that deal with those issues, so one of those committees is one of the committees I'd like to end up with.
Nashville, Tennessee. Good morning.
Yes, I'd just like to ask the new representative how he feels about the Republican Party. I'm a longtime Republican for years, and I feel that the Republican Party has left me as an individual. There's a lot of issues as far as cutting taxes and giving and having the government stay out of my life is an issue that I agree with them on. But I think that this abortion issue is something that has destroyed, that's going to destroy, if not already, the Republican Party, because the last time I voted for Clinton, just because of that issue, and I think a lot of people are sick and tired of all this moral issues rammed down our throat. I don't like, if you want to take your morals, principles into the church and teach your children that. Also, another thing I'd like to say is that Ventura, I'd just like to give him a message that I'm proud that he won the election. I just think that he should dress more professionally now, that when he's seen on TV, rather than wearing cowboy boots and fringe jackets, I think that he should be more governor-like, and he would be more accepted by the country.
You know, just to add on a humorous note, I was at the Badger game last weekend, Wisconsin playing Minnesota, and there are a number of Minnesota fans walking around with these billboards saying, "Our governor can beat your governor up." Pretty interesting stuff.
Couple of stories in the paper today about the Republican Party. The Washington Times has this: RNC chief warns of leadership bloodbath. Ralph Hallow writes, Republican National Committee Chairman Jim Nicholson warned yesterday that challenging him for re-election could add to the interscene bloodbath among Republicans in the wake of the November 3rd electoral setback. I have solid commitments from 2/3 of the National Committee, Mr. Nicholson said. There may be those who would like a bloodbath, but I don't want that or expect it. What I expect will be like a pinprick. But then the Baltimore Sun has a front page story with this headline: GOP turns to its governors for new pragmatic leaders. House losses make them big players in the presidential race, and Paul West writes, Republican governors are sending a message to their leaderless party: follow us. Hailed as models of success in their own states, the new Republican governors are suddenly being embraced by GOP officials as the salvation of a party that got the wind knocked out of it on Election Day. This week, at the first post-election party gathering, the governors will showcase their popularity, talk up their pragmatic conservatism, try to take a more active hand in steering the GOP's future. Unlike congressional Republicans, GOP governors are generally regarded as moderates or moderate conservatives in touch with the needs of ordinary people. And our next call is from the 1st District of Wisconsin, from Racine. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Paul.
Hi.
Hi. Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering what your stand is. Did you hear about the situation in Burlington yesterday?
No. I've been in meetings until late last night and this morning, so please tell me.
We had some kids that put some high school students and some teachers on a hit list, kind of like a Jonesboro thing, and the police have come in and intervened and arrested them. I'm just wondering where you stand on that, because my concern is safety for our public schools. My son's only 9 right now, but he's going to be going to public high school, and I'm just really concerned about, guns and...
Which school in Burlington? Which school?
High school.
Really?
And it's just really strange that Burlington, small family community,
Yeah, right.
would, turn into something like a Jonesboro.
Burlington's a wonderful community. That's where we had our election night party at the Cotton Picker there. That really surprises me. It's such a wonderful community, not knowing any of the details of this. And this is something that the local authorities and the principals and the school district should deal with. It's tough for me to comment on it, quite frankly, just now learning about it. But that disturbs me. When things like that come to Burlington, Wisconsin, which is a wonderful place to live, a nice community, that tells you a little bit about our culture.
Yeah, a number of newspapers had that story this morning. As we continue, I'll try to find it again.
Yeah, please. I've been in meetings all morning.
From Burlington. Next call is from Shreveport, Louisiana. Good morning.
Good morning. I wanted to know if Mr. Ryan could shed some light on something that I'm confused regarding the tax code.
Mm-hmm.
The lady that called a couple of calls ago that was on Social Security, she's concerned about the sales tax. Well, if she already gets Social Security from the government, would Mr. Ryan believe that they need to cater more to the middle-class family who is really paying all the taxes as opposed to someone like her who is not paying taxes?
I think all Americans deserve tax relief. You're right. The middle class are paying the highest proportion of taxes in this country. What she was talking about is the sales tax and how people who had the least amount of ability to pay the tax pay the largest proportion of it respective to their income. I think there are better tax systems we can put in place than a sales tax regime. There are different types of sales taxes. But what you're making a very good point. People are paying a lot in taxes. We're paying the highest taxes we have in the peacetime history of our nation. I think it's very important that we take a look at how much government we have, how much power and money we're sending to Washington, and whether it's worth it, and how much of our freedoms we are depressing in our homes, in our families, by sending people, reluctant spouses, into the workforce to pay more in taxes. Today it takes two breadwinners to do what it used to do for one. I think that it's very important that all people get tax relief, especially those who are paying taxes.
You will not be the youngest member of Congress. That's Harold Ford, but you are the youngest new member of Congress. How did you go about being elected?
I ran for Congress, worked very, very hard. Started my days typically about 4:30 in the morning. Went to plant gates, introduced myself to workers as they walked into the plants. Would usually campaign until about 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. Meeting as many people as I possibly could. Church picnics, festivals, dairy breakfasts, which are very important in Wisconsin, and just campaigned very hard and ran on a specific set of ideas and specific set of principles. Ideas and principles which I did not waver from, which I was very consistent about, and communicated to people who I am and what I believe in. What are my core principles? How do I want to represent them in Congress? Those are the issues I talked about in the campaign, and I'm very fortunate and humbled to have this tremendous responsibility that I take very seriously to work on behalf of the 1st Congressional District from Wisconsin.
Cleburne, Texas is on the moderate line. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, sir. My question to you, I have two questions. First, a couple of years ago, we had a question on elections of term limitations for congressmen, and I'd like to hear your views on that. Second question to you is, I feel that alcohol is 100 times more powerful of a drug than marijuana is, and I just wondered what your views on legalization and regulating and taxing marijuana is. Thank you.
I don't support legalization of marijuana. I've heard those comments, but I do not believe that that is the right direction for our country to go toward legalizing marijuana. As for the other issues that you mentioned, we've been talking about this earlier. I think term limits is we talked about a citizen legislature. I think term limits is good for our nation. I support term limits. I think it's important to have term limits uniformly placed across the nation. Where I come from in Wisconsin, we're the #1 donor state in the nation, meaning we send more money to Washington than we ever get back in aid. It's actually about $1,038 per individual in Wisconsin that we send them over to Washington that we never get back in Wisconsin. I think part of the problem is because of this political clout game of seniority that's going on up here. I think the caller came from Texas. You send almost 30 members there. We send 9. I do believe that term limits will help even out that balance, get fresh blood in Congress, new ideas, and there are plenty of intelligent, capable people in this country. So I think term limits is a good thing for our country. It's good. It will be healthy to restore a citizen legislature.
This is that story that you're talking about. This is USA Today. Teens accused of plotting attack. Police got tip. Boys had list of targets at school at Burlington High School. And in the USA Today story, there's a map showing Burlington down in the southeast corner of the state. And Maria Puente writes, police in Burlington, Wisconsin could hardly believe the tip but acted on it anyway. 5 teenage boys planned to shoot up their high school, killing a carefully targeted group of students and administrators who had picked on them. Monday, 3 teenagers were under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. More than a dozen other teens were stunned to learn they were on the alleged hit list. A quiet city of 10,000, better known for making chocolate, there's a Nestle plant there, was feeling the glare of international attention as the latest American community to confront the specter of violence. No one in Burlington was hurt, but almost everyone in town was shaken. Hartsdale, New York, is on our Liberal line. Good morning. There's Hartsdale. Good morning.
I'm a Democrat, and I'm dismayed by the congressional Democrats in Congress that with all the gates and all the corruption that came out of this administration, womanizing and all, that they defend the president under all costs. I mean, they don't want to find the truth. All they do, and I've been hearing, and I've been listening to all the hearings and the committees and all that, they do not want to find this truth.
I share your concern that politics has become the rule of the land in this episode. I campaigned on saying this. This should be objective. The rule of law should rule the day. We should follow the facts and the allegations. And the president deserves his day in court, as he will in the Judiciary Committee. We have to get politics out of this. Stop trying to capitalize on the political issues involved with this. These are very serious allegations. They have to be dealt with in a very serious way. And we, as people who belong to one party or another, need to rise above that and handle this issue in a very objective, nonpartisan basis.
You also, from your webpage, point out in the very first sentence, you are a 5th-generation resident of Wisconsin. Tell us a little bit about how the Ryans came to Wisconsin.
Well, my great-great-grandfather, James Ryan, came over from Ireland in 1851, right after the potato famine. Started farming in Footville, Wisconsin, which is right outside of my hometown of Janesville. His son, P.W. Ryan, started a railroad embankment firm where he got together with other farmers in the area using their plows and their horses. And if you just look in rural America, you'll see that a lot of the railroad tracks are raised on mounds, so flooding in the fields won't take out railroad tracks. Well, he was an entrepreneurial person at the time and decided to build a railroad embankment firm. And my family's been earth moving in southern Wisconsin ever since then. That was in 1884 where he started Ryan Construction. It's where I just worked until getting elected to Congress. Now we use trucks. They're a lot more productive, but we use scrapers, trucks, articulated haulers, backhoes, those types of material. We do Superfund cleanup, wetland mitigation, landfills, golf courses. My cousin Patrick runs the company now, but it's in its 4th generation now. I've got a lot of family. I'm Irish Catholic. I've got 55 cousins in my hometown of Janesville alone. About 45 of them were in one of our commercials. My family's been involved in our church, in the YMCA, in our community in Janesville for 5 generations. It's something I'm very proud of. And it gives you a lot of good campaign work as well. We had a lot of Ryans down on the campaign, stuffing envelopes.
Are others in your family elected officials?
No, I'm the first public sector person in my family. I guess you could call me the black sheep. I'm the one who left business. My brothers, my sister, my mom, my dad died when I was younger at 16. My mom went back to school to learn a trade and a profession, then started up a small business and built a successful business, and then just sold it very recently. So we had some tough lessons growing up, in Janesville early on in life, but we have a great family that really came together, and I'm the one who went out into public service and had a lot of family members helping us out. It was great. My brother, sister-in-law, mom, my brother and sister-in-law took 6 months off of their jobs of a leave of absence to work on the campaign. My mother worked on the campaign full-time. We had a lot of cousins. Our family really came together in this race. It was just a tremendous experience.
About 15 minutes left in this segment with Representative-elect Paul Ryan from Wisconsin's 1st District. He has a degree in economics and political science from Miami University in Ohio, and he grew up in Janesville, Wisconsin, in the southeast part of the state. San Diego on the conservative line. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to make a guess and wonder if the Ryans were Democrats at one time.
Yes, we were.
Because I'm also from Irish Catholic heritage, and I had a lot of relatives that built up the Democratic Party. And here today, we're just about to listen to a Democratic president's mistress on tape. How does that show the disintegration of that political party? It's if we did not have 90% of the media supporting the Democratic Party, I believe this president would have been impeached probably after Travelgate or Waco, or maybe would never even been allowed to be the candidate for his party, because he has committed so many crimes over the last 6 years. And your job, as Woodrow Wilson said, the #1 job of Congress is to oversee the executive branch. You can look at any department, commerce, justice, labor. It has been corrupted. And now you have Henry Hyde, who only wants to look at 2 little articles, or the perjury, which maybe isn't little, but this is massive.
Thanks for the call.
Well, I think what we're seeing is the moral disintegration of an individual, which is the president, and not necessarily the party. But one thing you touched on that I think is very interesting is oversight. The Congress has not, in my opinion, done an adequate job in overseeing the federal government. I think the oversight functions with all of these authorizing committees in Congress need to be enhanced, need to be improved. To some members of Congress, it may not be that interesting work, but it's very valuable. Look at down the street the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Commerce. There are many agencies and departments that have been run amok for years. GAO audits have said that some of the books in these agencies are unauditable. I think that Congress has to pick up and improve its oversight functions. And if you look at the last 50 years, the difference in the balance of power between the executive branch and the legislative branch, one of the reasons why I support a bill called the Congressional Responsibility Act is because the executive branch, for many cases, has been writing our laws. It has taken away the separation of powers doctrine, in a sense, and written our laws, whereby you don't have a representative in Congress voting on the laws that affect your life, your business, your school. Those laws are coming at you in the form of rules and regulations from the executive branch. That is unconstitutional, according to many constitutional scholars. The legislative branch should write the laws. The executive branch should implement the laws. But with the rulemaking process, we have a case in which the executive branch is writing and implementing the laws. I believe those rules and regulations that take the full force of law should come back to Congress for a final vote and approval, so that we have a say-so, so that we do have citizen representation in the legislature. I find it very interesting that when the Supreme Court threw out the line-item veto, they did so because they said it violated the separation of powers doctrine. They did so because they said the line-item veto, the power of the purse, belongs with Congress, not the executive branch. Now, to have line-item veto, we have to have a constitutional amendment. But it's interesting to note that the court said there are limits to what the executive branch can do in the lawmaking arena. I think that's a very intriguing aspect. I think it's very refreshing for the courts to finally say that there are limits to the executive branch. Hopefully we can reassert those limits to the executive branch in this session of Congress.
The caller also mentioned this story. This is an article from the Philadelphia Inquirer under the headline, "Tripp Tapes to Go Public Today." It's by the Reuters news service. Linda Tripp's secretly recorded tapes of Monica Lewinsky's tales of her affair with President Clinton will be made public today by House impeachment investigators. The tapes, which triggered independent counsel Kenneth Starr's investigation into the Lewinsky case and led to his report to Congress alleging impeachable offenses by Clinton, will be released at 9:30 a.m. That's in about half an hour. A total of 22 hours of recordings will be released on 37 separate tapes. An edited transcript of the tapes was made public in October, but the release of the audio recordings was slowed by the painstaking process of removing material ordered deleted by the House Judiciary Committee. House audio technicians went through the tapes line by line, sometimes removing single words or phrases. other times removing whole passages that committee members had ordered kept secret. Those tapes released in about half an hour. You'll be able to hear those on C-SPAN tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Elko, Nevada on the Moderate line. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I wanted to praise Paul Ryan. I think you're just very, very neat.
Thank you.
We need more young people like you in office. Something you said earlier about gun control. I agree with you totally. I absolutely don't think that we need more gun laws. We absolutely need to take the people that are abusing the laws and put them behind bars and do something permanent with those people, because that's what they want to do. But to go a little bit further, you look at the crime with the children. The parents, the power that was given to the parents by God, it was taken back in 1985 when they told our children at school, well, if your parents spank you, come and let us know. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it's gotten really that silly, to the point that if you do more than slap your child across the butt with your hand, you're going to go to jail. And the children know this, and they know how far they can go and stand right and you know, right in a policeman's face, right in their parents' face, scream, cuss, do anything they want to, and there's not a thing you can do about it. I've had police officers get frustrated right in my presence because they can't do anything. But now what they've done by taking all of this power away from the parents is they've built more, what do you call, holding cells, jails right here in Elko, Nevada. They have built a great big jail for these children.
Thanks, Nevada, for your points.
Well, you touch on a very, very important, large issue, and that is this. There are a lot of people out here in Washington who do think they can raise your family better than you can. There are people who do believe that the government can play a larger and more increasing role in micromanaging the comeback of our families and replacing our families in some senses. I mean, that's the philosophical end of a lot of these policies. I don't agree with that. I believe, first on gun control, let's go after the people, the laws we have on the books. Let's enforce those laws and go after the people who break the laws. But at the end of the day, the government cannot fix these problems in our families. It never should attempt to, and it won't be able to. But when the government tries to, in many cases, we raise taxes to the point where we're pushing reluctant spouses out in the workforce. We're making people work in my state till May the 17th just to pay their taxes to the government before they can start saving up for their families, spending more time with their children, paying for better education, health care, vacations for their families. I mean, we have to take a look at what we're doing here in Washington with our taxing, with our spending, with the rating of the Social Security Trust Fund, with the kind of debt we're piling on to future generations, and ask ourselves, is that the best thing for our families? Do we really have all the answers out here in Washington? Our federal government was never designed to be as big and vast and large as it is today. I think the genius of America is every individual in this society. It's the individual. It's the families in our communities. We should recognize that fact instead of trying to go to Washington, take a little bit more money out of your paycheck every step of the way so we can spend it for you. Because I don't think I know how to run your life better than you do. I don't think I know how to spend your money better than you do. I think you should be able to spend your own money to solve your own problems. And government should be closer to the people, because every time you advance government to a next level, to the bigger level, to the federal government, the state, it costs more, it gives you less responsiveness, and you have less say-so on how your government works. That's very important. And I think these are the philosophies that are going to be debated as we go to the next century.
One of the candidates for Republican conference chairman is Representative J.C. Watts from Oklahoma, and the Washington Post has this story today. For Watts, a bid to broaden his party's appeal, House GOP's only black member knows the spotlight, aspires to join leadership, and Edward Walsh writes, for the moment, and perhaps for some time to come, Representative J.C. Watts of Oklahoma is one of a kind. He's the only black Republican member of Congress. As such, Watts has attracted special attention since his first election to the House in 1994. He was a featured speaker at the 96 Republican National Convention, and in 1997 was selected by GOP leaders to deliver the response to President Clinton's State of the Union address, a plum assignment for a second-term lawmaker. The article continues, Watts insists he's not running as a black candidate for conference chair, but just as one member of the Republican conference. But implicit in his candidacy and in the attempt of Representative Jennifer Dunn of Washington to topple House Majority Leader Richard Armey of Texas is the argument that the GOP must broaden its leadership if it hopes to expand its appeal. Encino, California, is on the Liberal line. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Congressman Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
I was watching Road to the Capitol the other night, and I'm not sure if it was you, but it looked like you. And you said something like the only way we're going to get tax cuts is to take Social Security off payroll. And I wanted to know what you meant by that, because it sounds like what you're saying is you're going to give the corporations the Social Security cut, and then everybody's going to be an independent contractor.
No, I didn't say something quite like that. Here's what I was saying is the best way to cut taxes, and in my opinion, the way we're going to get tax cuts is to make sure we stop raiding the Social Security Trust Fund. What I meant was this. I don't know, are you an employee? Can she hear?
She's gone.
Okay, she's gone. Okay. Well, whether you're an employee or an employer, your payroll taxes should go to your Social Security. They shouldn't go to other government programs. I believe Social Security ought to be run more like a pension system, not like a slush fund for politicians. So, in my opinion, it's best that we make sure that all payroll tax receipts be dedicated to Social Security, not toward anything else, not toward new spending, not toward tax cuts, because I think it's very important that we reassert the wall between Social Security and the rest of the government so we can improve and extend the solvency of the Social Security system. Having said that, when you take that off, when you take payroll taxes out of the equation, we're going to start running surpluses in the non-Social Security part of our government, according to the Congressional Budget Office. That's going to be a case where we are overpaying our taxes above and beyond Social Security taxes. If people are overpaying their taxes, I think they should get their money back. I also think our government is too large, does waste too much of our money, and they ought to get more of their money back as well. So I think it's important that as we fix Social Security, stop the raiding of the trust fund, we also give working Americans tax relief and let them keep more of the money they earn. And that's very important. You know, I'm concerned about our economy. These financial crises that are spreading around the globe could come to America. The problems we're having with Brazil and Indonesia, these problems can spread contagion to America. We've got to brace ourselves for that. We've got to make sure we have an expanding pie of opportunity throughout our country so people have good jobs, they're making good wages, and they're allowed to keep more of their own money. We have to begin to prepare ourselves for these potential problems in our economy. The best way we can use to start saving for our economy to have a good, safe retirement is to make sure we have a Social Security system that works and to make sure people can keep more of their own money so they can spend it in the economy, so they can create more jobs. These are things we've got to start thinking about because the economic, our economy is performing well today, relatively speaking. We can't have any assurances that that's going to be like that tomorrow, especially when we are paying such high taxes, the highest peacetime tax rate we've had in the history of our nation.
Take a couple of calls here. Batesville, Indiana. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I just want to say a couple different things. First of all, what I see going on in Washington is that it's not government by the people, it's government for the groups. And I have an exercise for everybody in Washington, all the Democrats, Republicans, Independents, whoever. I think they should all sit down before they go into session and write down what they think the definition of responsibility is. I think that would be an eye-opening thing for them.
Thanks, Indiana. Get another call from Mount Rose, Michigan is on the moderate line. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. How are you doing?
Good
morning.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, this gentleman, man, he is a breath of fresh air.
Thank you.
As a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but I mean, I'm just sitting here shocked. He acts like he has opinions of his own, and my problem is with the Republicans. It seems like they just always go Republican. It seems as though they don't use their own opinions. When for instance, when they had the vote on whether Clinton should be impeached or not, every single, except for one, I believe, Republican voted yes, he should be in front of the judiciary. The Democrats, not all of them said no. There was 18 or something like that. And it just made me feel like, they're just voting by party. They're not voting with their own, initiative, using their. Maybe he isn't. There's not one Republican that thought, well, maybe this isn't the way it looks.
Okay, thanks, Michigan. Here's an email from Mike Cook along those same lines. Finally, we're getting some young men with common sense. I concur on guns not being the problem. Thank you for making my day. I'm glad that our representative, Bob Barr, is not alone in defending our constitutional rights under the Second Amendment. Congratulations, and may your political career be long and productive. And then here's a fax from here in Washington, D.C. Congressman-elect Ryan's, this is from Robert Branham. Congressman-elect Ryan's comment regarding gun control in the District of Columbia is a distortion of truth. If D.C.'s gun control doesn't work, it's because the neighboring states of Virginia and Maryland do not have gun control. Mr. Ryan's comment represents the continuing GOP attack on the good people of the district.
Well, I have nothing against the good people of the district. I think this is a phenomenal city. But if you do look at the statistics of Washington, D.C., you do find that the rates they talk about in gun control are per 100,000 people. The rate of crimes committed with guns is very high here in Washington, D.C. You go across the river over into Virginia, or you go up the pike to Maryland, where the gun control laws under this type of interpretation are lax or less stringent, and you have less problems with guns. So you have less crimes committed with the gun. Those are the recent statistics I've seen. I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm not an expert on the laws here in Washington, D.C. But the point I'm trying to make is this. Let's enforce the laws we have on the books. Let's go after the people who are breaking the laws, not the law-abiding citizens. And let's take a look at what works in society. Adding more of these laws on top of the books, infringing upon the constitutional rights of individuals in our country, is not the way to fix these problems with crime. You know, we have legitimate disagreements on these issues, but I want to focus on things that work, on how do you really stem crime in our country.
On our Liberal line is Mulberry, Florida. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. And I lived in Wisconsin for almost 30 years.
Where?
The Milwaukee, Fond du Lac area.
My mom's from Fond du Lac.
So, real interesting. I'd like, Mr. Ryan, just a few real quick things. One of which is, have you read the Time magazine this week?
The article about Newt Gingrich?
No, the article about corporate welfare. It's into the hundreds of billions of dollars. And it seems to be growing constantly. And the coalition is, it's the middle class that's paying the taxes. But the reason, if you look at the last 20 years ago, corporate welfare, you know, they seem to be purchasing congressmen quite often, and especially the leaders, and then they get these sweet deals written in the law.
I share your sentiments on corporate welfare. And for lack of a better term, it's also called industrial policy. This is something, in my opinion, government should not be doing. The Advanced Technology Program is the creme de la creme of corporate welfare program, whereby it's about $600 to $800 million going to large corporations to finance their research and development budgets for applied technologies, meaning for technologies that go into the workforce, that go into the products, meaning we're subsidizing certain businesses. The Commerce Department has a pool of money whereby they're picking winners and losers in the marketplace. Our economy doesn't work like that. Our government shouldn't try to engage in industrial policy or corporate welfare. I think the best way to advance the welfare of corporations or the welfare of jobs in this country, the best way to get our economy growing is to let people keep more of what they earn. You know, reform our product liability laws, reduce tax rates, you know, reduce our burden of debt facing our nation. Those are the things we should do as a federal government to increase economic growth in this country, rather than sending out grants and gifts and pork barrel spending in many of these cases to try and pick winners and losers in the marketplace. I share your sentiment on corporate welfare, and I think we ought to take that money and use it to reduce taxes.
Lake Charles, Louisiana, our last call in this segment. Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to tell Mr. Ryan that I really appreciate him as a Christian. Wish he was representative for Louisiana. If he ever runs for president, he has my vote.
Thanks for the call.
I'm not old enough.
You mentioned, that's right. You mentioned deer season coming up. Where will you be going?
Spring Green. Spring Green's an interesting part of Wisconsin. It's outside of the district, but in my district, you have to use a shotgun. You can't use rifle. My biggest love is bow hunting. I like to bow hunt quite a bit. But when gun season comes around, I like to use a rifle. I go with the same family members every year. I've been doing it since I was about 12 years old. And Spring Green is where Frank Lloyd Wright is from. And there's all of these wonderful Frank Lloyd Wright houses, museums around the area. I'm hunting, and it's a hillier part of Wisconsin. Beautiful land, oak trees, swamps, evergreens, a lot of mixed in between dairy farms. I was putting my tree stand up last Friday. I saw a 10-point buck about 500 yards from my stand, so I've got a date with that guy when I get back.
One of the representative-elects in Congress is